Please put your hands together for Jörg, Gerbig, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction and welcome to all of you here. Very happy to have you all here in the premises of Lieferando. I'm actually, as you mentioned, COO of the company, which basically means I'm also in charge of sales. And as you also rightfully mentioned, basically founded Lieferando 10 years ago. And back then, when we started, quickly realized how important sales is. And the company wouldn't be there where it is today if we didn't do well in sales. So that's why I'm happy to share a few high-level insights and lessons learned into our sales department in the next 10 minutes. Before I do that, I actually would love to share you a bit about our background of the company. I hope it's not coming across as too much pitching, because I heard that it don't. So, so I actually would love to show you a small video about our last ski trip, because we are going on a ski trip every year with our employees. So that's actually here. Yeah, so why did I show you that video? First of all, it can be quite fun as well to work at Lieferando, but that's most of the pitching I want to do for tonight. Secondly, we're trying to be one company, which is very important for us, to share best practices, align processes across the different countries we're in. But thirdly, also, when we go there, I actually realized how big the company has become. And so I'll tell you a bit about the start first before I then go into the lessons learned. So 10 years ago, I was actually an investment banker, as you rightfully said. Hair was much shorter, I had to shave every day. And back then, I was allowed actually to order food every night when I did overtime. And that actually happened almost every day. So I looked at the market and I thought, hey, it's actually a market with a lot of potential. So I came up with the idea, asked a bit around with my friends, and here we were 10 years ago, basically founding Lieferando. And what we saw at the beginning, we had a website, but yeah, nothing happens because there's no restaurants on there, no customers. So obviously we quickly realized one of the most important things, or the reason for a company to exist, is sales. No? If you don't do sales well, then you have no reason to exist as a company. So all of our founders were very focused around sales. Everyone was involved in sales. And I'm also investing in other startups, but if I look at their sales departments and the founders sometimes say something like, yeah, we don't need to do sales, the customers are coming to us, that's all bullshit. I mean, like, you have to do sales, else you don't have any reason to exist. So we're actually very much focused around sales. Because of that, we are actually having network effects in our business. But you need to somewhere start to get these network effects running. And we start with adding all these restaurants. So our sales teams are very focused around adding these restaurants. And because only if we have the offer, then we can actually add the consumers, then the consumers hopefully return and do more orders, then that attracts new restaurants, which you also need to sign up with salespeople again. And then you get actually that cycle going, which we call network effects. Where did that lead us to? So 10 years later, and actually we got together with a Dutch company called Takeaway in the meantime. 10 years later, we're actually in 11 countries. We actually have close to 50,000 restaurants, and you have to consider, well, there's also quite a lot of churn. So if you would just take a number, we're not publishing these numbers, but like let's assume 20% churn, then actually you have to sign up about 10,000 restaurants every year to only stay at the same level of restaurants. And we're actually having close to 50,000 restaurants. And we're transferring every year, or last year we transferred 2.8 billion in order value to our restaurant partners. Actually, most recently we announced another transaction with a UK company. And if that transaction goes through, we're actually having 155,000 restaurants and actually transferring more than 7.3 billion euros in order value to our restaurant partners, and we would be in 23 countries, being the largest online food delivery player globally outside of China. So that's so much said for the company itself and why sales contributed so much to our success. And how much effort it actually was to sign up these 155,000 restaurants. Actually, I myself, I'm still involved in sales, so if it's about key accounts, I'm still attending some of these meetings. And during those 10 years, I had a couple of lessons learned, which sound pretty simple, but I think it's very helpful to really keep those advices. Like the first one, get the basics right. I mean, almost everything you do, no matter whether it's sales or anything else, you have to get the basics right. And when I mean basics, is like things like collect all the data you can, have a granular sales funnel so you can actually improve each part of the sales funnel, predefine routines, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel every time you do it again. So you want to have some automated processes, and you need to have a full lead pipeline. And I mean, a funny side story on the lead pipelines, actually, I remember like even 8 years ago when we had 2,000 or 3,000 restaurants in Germany, our salespeople were already saying like, so what do I do next year? I mean, we don't have any leads anymore next year. And like, obviously that never happened, but an example actually for get the basics right is also of our logistics department, which is not sales, but you can actually, you will realize that soon, transfer that to sales pretty easily. So we have a logistics department, which actually delivering orders from restaurants who don't have their own delivery. And we're active in Germany in 38 cities. We have 4,000 drivers, and we employ them all, insure them. But it's very hard to get enough drivers. As you can imagine, 4,000 drivers, and there's a lot of churn. So you need to hire a lot of new drivers all the time. So we have a scarcity of drivers. And I said, like, why can't we hire more drivers? And people already came up with crazy ideas like, yeah, why don't we start adding freelancers, which to our mind is kind of illegal, and all these kind of crazy ideas. And then I said, like, okay, let's look at the basics. So I looked at it, and we actually get a lot of leads into the pipeline, but the conversion rate was really bad. And so it gets back to basics. We looked at the granular sales funnel, looked where the conversion goes wrong, because in the end it turned out that it took more than 40 days to really convert a lead into a sign-up, basically. And that's way too long. Now, if you're a student and you're looking for 40 days to get a response or something, that's way too long. So we're improving the process now. And that's one example, not out of sales, but where you really have to get the basics right, focus on the right things, and don't go crazy with ideas, but focus on the right things. And Margaret Thatcher also said a good quote, which probably also nowadays would be a good quote for English politicians again, but it's a different topic. Plan your work for today and every day, then work your plan. Very important, before you start running, think about it first, because then you don't need to run in various directions, but in the right direction. That's the first takeaway. Second one, you're one team. You saw earlier in the video, one team, you're one team, one company. I mean, you're probably after the presentation a bit blind of orange, but like everything we do the same way in all our countries. We have best practices which we apply across the countries. We're trying to align processes. It's very important. Like, make use of your team basically, because if you're on your own, it would be very hard, but you have a team. And you can't be the best in everything. I cannot be the best in everything, but I have people who are better than me in a certain part of the process. So look at your sales funnel and look at conversion rates of other people, who's the best one in a certain step of the funnel, and then see how he does it. Share best practices. But it's not only within the team, but in our case, because we're doing it the same way across all the countries, we're also sharing these best practices across various countries, because other countries have different perspectives, different mindsets, and you might actually be learning a lot from people with different mindsets. Your one company is also very important, because I mean, you can be you're having a great sales team, but in the end, if customer service does a lot of things wrong, then in the end, you won't be able to prolong a contract because customer service did a lousy job. No, so you need to act as one company, and it's very important, obviously, for leaders to have the company go in the same direction. And last but not least, I think probably the most important, I mean, like I said, get the basics right is important. Process is very important, get the basics right. But even more important than that, I can tell you out of more than 10 years of experience, relationship. And that kind of is sometimes a bit contradictory to accelerating sales cycles. Because if you want to accelerate a sales cycle, you could go a lot of shortcuts. But a lot of shortcuts might, in the end, not turn out in the long run to be beneficial for you. So I would always prefer a relationship as compared to having the right process or having a shortcut with regards to accelerating a sales cycle. And I can give you a few examples. I mean, like one of the largest pizza chains here in Germany, like in the end we did the contract with a handshake. And we're a stock listed company, so it's always a bit hard. The auditor then comes and says, okay, can you show us a contract for these revenues? And we're like, yeah, we don't have a contract, it's a handshake deal. And it's kind of one of our largest customers. But there's a mutual trust. So you need to build a relationship of trust. That means you need to be transparent, honest. Even if at the first closing of a deal or a sales, it might take a bit longer, but it's really crucial to build up this trust relationship with your customers. And even if it takes a bit longer, so it's a bit contradictory sometimes to accelerating the sales cycle, in the long run, you will make sure when you sell something the second time to this guy, it will be with a handshake. And that's the most important thing. So these are the three lessons learned I wanted to give you. And obviously, if you like skiing, more than happy to try with us as well.